Welcome to the show. And today I've got a very exciting guest, Andre Pienaar, the very creative distiller at Pienaar Son. Andre and his father Skalk own the little distillery which is now at Maker's Landing on the V&A waterfront. My name is Holger and this is DrinksWorld. Welcome to the show. And today my guest is Andre Pienaar from Cape Town. Welcome to the show, Andre.
Hey, Holger, thanks so much for having me. It's great.
Andre, let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Joburg, moved down to Wellington, which is a small town about an hour outside of Cape Town when I was about 7. And then, I've been here in kind of the Western Cape for ever since then, which was like 1995, basically.
Yeah, and Wellington is in the heart of everything that's alcohol related. I guess it's kind of the Boerland, and there's a lot of things happening. I think only in recent years, kind of Joburg has caught up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if I look at it now in like retrospect, it's really interesting. It's obviously like kind of like a significant wine region, but then when I think about this Sedgwick distillery that is there doing all the 3 ships and the Bains, and then actually we stayed on a small holding that was two properties down from Roger Jorgensen, where he was doing all of his stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of weird how it all panned out.
Yeah. I spoke to Roger about a month ago. We did a little interview with him in Kenya.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So that's quite interesting to listen to his story, because I went to visit him many, many years ago, probably the first distillery that I ever visited, maybe besides Helmut Holder.
It's kind of, he's definitely one of those like unsung heroes that like the general public don't know about. Yeah. Like so many of those early distillers and gin brands, like when you speak to them, you're like, oh, how'd you get started? And a lot of them always have a story like, we went out to Roger and asked him some questions and he helped us with this and that. Like, he's definitely a part of a lot of people's stories that I don't think people know about.
Yeah. You probably had your own Roger Jorgensen in your life, even though you lived just down the road from him. Who influenced you? I assume it was your dad. It's kind of funny. I think my dad was the final push in terms of me deciding to open the distillery, in terms of like, it would be stupid not to try. I mean, he's been developing distilling equipment for the last 40 plus years. So it was one of those, when I kind of bought a still and started playing around just for fun, and I've just got like a big love for like food and flavor, and I kind of just happened to have a biochemistry and chemistry degree. So when I was playing around with stuff and kind of going, oh, this is actually really fun, and it's kind of ticking all of those like hemispheres of my brain. And then it was my dad it was that final piece of the puzzle, like, oh, and my dad builds equipment for a living. This would be stupid not to try, kind of thing. Do we want to punt your father a little bit? Tell us a little bit about the business that he does. Is it only big distilleries, or does he do small ones as well?
No, I mean, they're kind of always open to doing anything. He runs a company called Logichem. They still operate out of Wellington, and they do everything from, they built my setup. He also actually helped out Jean-Baptiste from Geometric Gin with some equipment, but they also built a lot of the equipment at Sedgwick. They do a lot of de-alkalization equipment now, which has actually become their main thing in Australia and Europe and the States. They're doing a lot of
de-elk technology. They've got a little brand called Go Low. And it's basically doing a lot of work out in the States, in Australia and Spain. And
is that de-alkalization for wine or for spirits generally?
Wine and beer.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of replacing a lot of the current technology, like the spinning cone. It's actually able to capture a lot of flavor that sits in the volatile kind of portion of the wine or the beer. That kind of all of the existing technology just can't get that and take away the alcohol, because they sit in a very kind of similar space on the spectrum.
Okay, that's interesting. It would be nice to talk to him. Andre, when I first met you, you were in Roeland Street, and for us, Roeland is obviously home to Roeland Liquors, and that was one of the pioneers in the whole craft movement. Tell us a little bit about that place and maybe where you've moved to now.
Yeah, so when I kind of started the distillery, I don't know why. I just didn't want to be I guess it's selfish, but I didn't want to get some little like industrial space like out in like Maitland or Mowbray or something, and have to sit in traffic every day to go to my Coles distillery. So I was looking for something like in the middle of town. And to be honest, Roeland Street, the space we found was actually like the only place that almost a landlord wasn't petrified to have, someone bringing in a still and making 96% alcohol in a pressurized vessel. And like kind of once you start speaking to landlords about what you're going to do, they get very kind of scared. Not knowing what their insurance is going to cover. So yeah, it was. I managed to find a landlord that thought it was like really like cool to have this like young guy trying to make kind of whiskey and gin next door. So we were there from 2015 to 2020, and yeah, it was a small little space that I basically got to learn and try and do everything that I do. And then recently we've moved to a space in basically the Cape Town foreshore, so just next to the waterfront. It's called Maker's Landing, and it's a building that we share with kind of like-minded food entrepreneurs. So there's everything here from a butchery to a bakery to like a cake store, and yeah, the space is a little bit bigger, so we get to kind of just do a little bit more. But we've got the really nice aspect now is that we actually have a dedicated tasting room with the retail space. We can actually like host people and really tell our story and let people taste and see, and it's been really great.
And that's where that Master Chef is, or is it next to it?
Yeah, they shot it here. They like actually took over the whole space, and they kind of inconvenienced a lot of us, to be honest. But yeah, hopefully it gave the building some publicity that we'll continue to see in the future.
Yeah.
But what's really nice about the Maker's Landing, they've got a food, or they've got like a kitchen incubator here. And the idea here is that, or like the best way I describe it is like food is one of those things that there's like a giant gap between making 50 cupcakes in your oven at home, and then when you have to make 500 cupcakes, you can't just like buy a bunch of ovens. You have to get like an industrial oven that then, it's not like it costs you maybe like 20,000 rand for that oven. That oven's going to cost you maybe like 1 to 2 million rand. And the jump as a small business to go there is quite large. So the cool idea with the kitchen incubator is it's like a full-on big professional kitchen with everything from the massive ovens to blast chillers to all this like amazing equipment, and you can just rent it per hour, per day. So you can kind of come in here and say, I'm going to make my 1,000 cupcakes, but I'm just going to rent everything I need for one day.
Wonderful.
And then you can go sell them at your market or online or whatever your vibe is.
Okay, and then there's obviously a market, and that creates that destination where people can then also visit you.
Yeah, exactly. So, like the whole concept here was kind of established pre-COVID, and they were looking at doing like a Wednesday night market and a Saturday day market, and having thousands of people here every day. And it's also where the cruise ships kind of drop off passengers and take on new passengers. But then obviously COVID just threw a wrench in everything. And first of all, we couldn't have that many people in the space. Now that we can, it's obviously really difficult. So yeah, I think a lot of Makers Landing is still trying to figure out who we are post-pandemic, which I guess is a lot of people around the world. But yeah, at the moment, it's very nice. There's a lot of food vendors here, and on the weekends, families come through. And in the kitchen incubator, there's like classes for the kids to kind of learn how to bake cookies, and there's nice coffee, and parents come and have a gin tasting here at me. And yeah, it's just really a nice vibe.
Yeah, Cape Town's really good at creating those destinations, hey?
For sure.
Yeah. Andre, let's talk a little bit about the business. When you launched, you had the Empire Gin, the Orient Gin, and the vodka, I think, came a little bit later. And that was really at the time when the gin revolution was taking place. Was the launch of your business in any way related to the gin revolution, or was it happening anyway?
I do think that the gin revolution was one of those juggernauts that no one was going to stop or almost influence single-handedly. But yeah, I remember when I was postulating the stuff around 2014, 2015, not a lot of people were speaking about gin. I went up to Joburg to the Distilling guys to do a little bit of like a fermentation course, just to kind of brush up on some of the stuff that I had read, just trying to gain as much insight as possible. And everyone that I spoke to there, like no one was talking about gin, and I was surprised. Like everyone was there because they wanted to either do like potato vodka or some fruit brandy, and I was the only one there who was interested in gin. But then, fast forward 2 years later, we launched. And I think when we launched, I think we were about like the 9th gin brand in South Africa then. I remember we launched like a week before Six Dogs. It was basically, at the time, I think it was Inverroche, Jorgensen's, Musgrave, I think New Harbour had just launched as well, and then like a slew of them kind of just came out, and I think we were like 9th or 10th, and then I don't really keep track of the stats, but someone told me I think it was 2 years later that the count was like 295, and I was just like, oh,
no, it's a million.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was certainly keeping track at the time. I was helping a friend of mine with his tops at Hillcrest, and we had done a beer destination store inside the tops where I think at the peak we had 500 different beers, and then I discovered the gin, and I said, okay, let's start doing the gin. And a lot of people tell me that we were the first to order their gins as they were launching, and it was very exciting times. I really enjoyed that, and I spent a lot of time in the retail trade, and and I met a lot of people named Pienaar because they all came to buy your gin.
That's amazing. Yeah, I never thought about that until after we launched. I was like, oh, we actually should have like a guaranteed portion of the public.
So yeah, I want a photo of you and the Springbok rugby captain.
Okay, one day I'll get it.
Yeah. So my mechanic is a Pienaar, my GP is a Pienaar. There's a lot of Pienaars even in Durban.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, I start to see it now with our online store, because obviously as you look through the orders, you check people's names, and yeah, there's quite a few Pienaars that pop up.
Yeah, so you're rebuilding the family tribe.
Basically, yeah.
At the time, I was quite critical of you using that name because obviously it's a family name and it's Afrikaans, and I thought it doesn't really belong on a gin brand. But in hindsight, I think you did a good job.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I think it was actually like a bit of a cop-out at the end of the day. I was like, I think I went through like 6 months of trying to figure out like, what do we call this thing? And like, what is best going to represent the way I feel about it? And I went through so many things, and it was kind of just like almost one of those, like, let's just call it what it is. Like, it's me and my dad trying to set up a distillery. So let's just try and not be pretentious and clever about it, and just call it what it is.
Yeah. And a lot of people commented that they liked the product itself, so the content. I got to taste a lot of gins over the years, but for me it was always more about the packaging, the presentation, the marketing, rather than the product. I don't pretend to have a very developed palate. But I think you tick both boxes.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, like I said in the beginning, I realized that it does stimulate both hemispheres of my brain. Like, I love the creative angle, both on like an actual flavor side, but also on a branding side. Like, I love the nerdy aspect of it. Like, I love getting into the nitty gritty of trying to almost like unlock a key. It's like I have this flavor profile in my head, and then you just have to like try and figure out how to like put that into a glass. Yeah. And I really enjoy both equally. But it's always been a big thing of mine that it's a pointless exercise if at the end of the day the liquid inside isn't great. Yeah. What's that old kind of saying? Like, it's easy to sell one bottle of gin, but to sell two becomes difficult. So yeah, for me it's always like, it has to come down to the liquid. Yeah. I think everything else gets the liquid into the glass, and hopefully someone gets to taste it. But if it doesn't taste great, no matter how cool that bottle is or that brand is, you're just never going to survive. It just won't work.
Yeah, somebody said to me the other day that all these new gin, craft gin distillers or creators have all only sold one bottle of gin to a whole lot of people, and now 5 years later they have to start selling their second bottle to that same person because they've run out of, I guess, early adopters, and exactly. That has been the difficult part for them. How is your business going? Is it sustainable?
Like, look, I definitely think 2018 and 2019 were really difficult years for us, actually, because like we say, you know, you go from like 10 gin brands to like, I don't know, like 300 plus, and it just becomes it becomes unsustainable from that aspect. And with that many brands out, the general public can't taste them all and then buy them according to quality. So they are buying them according to the branding and the price and all of those other aspects. We had been trying at that stage to kind of go that general route where you make the bottles here and you hopefully get them into a Checkers and a Pick and Pay and a Liquor City, and you basically wholesale. Like, that seemed to be the dream, because that meant volume, and volume meant a busy distillery, which meant you made money, I guess. And yeah, we slowly just started realizing that like it's not the way, or it's definitely not the way for me. So the pandemic slowed everything down, trying to figure out like how to keep things afloat. I don't know if it was that or not, but we kind of like emerged through that with me just kind of saying like, screw the big retailers. Like I'm kind of done just letting go of so much margin to this distributor who just drops the bottle here. And then anyway, you deal with all these problems of stock going missing and like, why not just sell straight to the consumer? So we've definitely diverted a lot of our attention just to online and growing our own audience that know us, trust us. And it's definitely more work, but it is very sustainable if you can grow that audience. And just like it almost becomes a weird thing of it's in the new world. So I've never met most of our customers, but there's a feeling like we are kind of the butchery just down the road, and you can trust that guy, and you go and you ask him to cut your chops. Like there's a sense of when we launch something new, I feel like a lot of our customers trust that it'll be good. They don't need to come and taste it because they've had previous stuff of ours, and they kind of say, if we're putting it out, it's good.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Eh? When I started in the liquor industry, you could count the number of merchants on one hand, never mind the producers. And now imagine every single guy who's managed to get a liquor license is now struggling to sell his gin. So he's starting to sell other things, and all this stuff is ending up in a shelf in a liquor city somewhere on the tops. And it's just a massive bun fight because there are just so many people coming up with new products.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy, and it's I've kind of always said, if you are a liquor city and you do want to stock my stuff, like awesome, send me a mail and I'll we'll send you some stuff. But that kind of that negotiation stance immediately changes. So it's like really nice now for me. Like we just released our whiskey, and I'm getting requests from stores to please stock.
Yeah.
And I'm now in the position where I'm like, it's doing really well right here. Like, I guess I can give you like 2 cases.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the discussion isn't about payment terms and rebates and this and that. They all of a sudden like, please just keep 3 cases aside for us. I'll pay you now.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden that whole transaction changes. And I feel like that's the kind of conversation I want to have. Like I don't want to sit there going, please take my stuff. But if you like what we do and your customers keep asking about it, then pick up the phone and let's chat.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's exactly what I've been trying to achieve. So I want to curate the list of these retailers that appreciate products like yours and, share your story and share the experience with them. And I don't know how many retailers are out there that are like that, but there certainly are some, and they don't always have the ability to find you.
For sure, yeah. I think I've always felt like the buyers of the retail stores, like if you ask me super naively, like what is their job, I would guess that they have to spot products that they think have promise, and that should be based on obviously kind of the way it looks and the way it tastes, and just I would almost imagine that person is good at their job because they can spot a good product when they see it.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens. It's if you go in and you're like, this is my product, exactly what you're saying, they're like, cool, but what's your marketing budget for us over the next 12 months?
Yeah.
And like that has nothing to do with the bottle that's on the table. It's kind of like, will you advertise in our Christmas catalog? And it's like, it's super cheap. It'll only cost you like 25,000 Rand, but you have to run a special on like 50% off. And it's like, okay, cool. So I need to sell like 5,000 bottles just like break even on this campaign. It's quite funny. Yeah, I'm kind of more just like, if we spent that 20,000 Rand on like online ads, I would actually like make money.
Yeah.
So why exactly am I stocking your store and paying you money to market my bottle with another 700?
I think I've just discovered a like-minded supplier, because that's really what happens out there.
No, it's crazy.
It's interesting, and I call the buyers the sales prevention department. They The less they have on their shelves, the better. And, preferably just Savannah and Castle Light.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's really funny. It's nice that, like, say now I am getting some emails. Like, I got an email last week from someone saying, hey, 2 separate clients walked in this morning and asked about tiny batch whiskey. So I'm saying, can I have stock?
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Send me your invoice details and I'll send you stock. Like, it should be that easy.
Yeah.
But it's never that easy.
Yeah.
And my kind of philosophy on, like, a lot of the business side of stuff is, like, business should be easy. And if it's not, then I'm kind of not interested. I mean, so many people will want to buy stock from me, but then they'll say, yeah, but you have to send us, like, certified copies of this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, it's going to take me half the day to do. Like, do you want the stock or not? And then it's, yeah, but we have to do it. And then I say, okay, but then I'm not going to send the stock. And then they go, okay, we'll let it slide. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, like, just make it easy. It should be simple. There's a supply and, like, a demand. Yeah,
I like the way you think. Tell me about the tiny batch whiskey. It certainly looks exciting.
Yeah, thanks. So it's been part of the plan since day one. It's kind of the reason why we made the vodka 100% corn-based. Like, the vodka was almost the first target to hit in terms of, like, making sure we understand our fermentation and our distillation and everything, because when you're making, like, a new make whiskey spirit, it's a very subjective target to try and hit. Whereas the vodka is kind of a lot easier to see if you're doing something wrong. So yeah, the whiskey's always been on the cards. Basically, like, early 2018, finally I decided to stop doing experiments and asking all these academic questions, and just said, just get liquid into a barrel. Like, just make the best liquid you can, find the best barrels you can, and it should be good. So that was my kind of theory going into it. And yeah, we finally released the whiskey now. It's spent about 4 years in barrel. And the idea is basically to release a barrel at a time. We only managed to barrel about 10 to 12 barrels per year. That's just our capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is not to, like, blend anything. So we will release a batch, and I call it tiny batch because it's literally just one barrel. I think the word, small batch is thrown around very loosely nowadays. And I remember looking at the World Whiskey Awards, like, criteria for some stuff. And I think to call something small batch for them, it had to be less than 100 casks. So I'm like, cool, that's 20,000 liters of whiskey at, like, cask strength. So I was like, that doesn't sound like a small batch to me. So it's kind of just trying to illustrate kind of how small and how special the stuff is that we make.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got a medium char. So basically we just have two different style barrels. The one is like a kind of a medium to light charred barrel. The other one is like a heavy char barrel. They're both virgin American oak. So both of them have a slightly sweeter, almost like American style to them. We basically get about 500 odd bottles out of a barrel.
Okay, so it is tiny, eh?
Yeah, it is pretty small. So we released finally the first two barrels that we did back in 2018, and yeah, it's been going super, super well.
So you didn't need your father's connections at Baines Distillery to get some whiskey, and you actually made your own.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that I was hoping, and I guess it's naive having seen what happened in the gin scene, but I was hoping that, I'm not the only one making whiskey. And I thought, wow, like maybe in 5 years we'll actually have this really nice South African craft whiskey scene. and it'll be guys that really have their heart in it, and they've like, you know, really been painstakingly putting barrels away for years. And then, like I say, just naively forgetting that people with a lot of money can also just buy whiskey and put it in a bottle and brand it with whatever they want, as, you know, South African Fynbos whiskey, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. So I do think a lot of that is going to start happening. But for us, yeah, I'd rather make like something that is going to taste very different to all of those guys, and put a stake in the ground and go, I think this is really, really good stuff, and we are going to position it as such.
Yeah. I certainly have found a number of whiskey producers around the country. I made a list for a guy that was opening a retail store in Joburg, and I said, here's a list of all the South African guys that make whiskey, and please go and support them. And I didn't get a very positive response from him, but I think the guy that's been at it the longest is probably Moritz from Dryman's Brewery. He's been distilling for a very long time, and
yeah, I've never tasted his stuff. I'm very intrigued.
And there's a guy, Skoonsbrood Distillers in the Northwest, who's got a massive barrel house of whiskey. His father started in the 90s, and again, I didn't get to taste it, but I got a very nice photo of me and him in the barrel room. So there is some stuff happening, and besides obviously the big producers. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. And then your little adventure buddy, what is that?
Yeah, so basically I love the Negroni. It's a classic gin-based Italian cocktail, and kind of wanted to release something that was more on the ready-to-drink kind of side of things. And I saw always, you know, people were doing pre-made cocktails, but in large bottles. I think the idea of a pre-made cocktail is the convenience of the pre-made cocktail, but if someone doesn't know about it and they get the bottle, then they still ask the question, you know, how much of this am I supposed to pour in a glass, and what am I supposed to do? These little adventure buddies are like a pre-made Negroni, but it's the like exact quantity you need. You basically just open the pouch, you pour it out over some ice, add a little like citrus wedge, and you're good, and you go. So yeah, I'm looking to expand the range a little bit now. I'm hoping to release an espresso martini version of it, and we'll kind of see how that goes. I've been running some trials on it for the last 4 months, but yeah, they're kind of just fun little things. I'm not sure how retail ready they are. We've been asked a lot about them, but at the moment I'm kind of happy just to have them on our online store and in our tasting room. Because yeah, you know, with retail, all the stuff comes along and everything needs to be barcoded and boxed and packaged appropriately, and just becomes intense.
Yeah. And I think the best thing about them is it's a perfect match for every new dad who's buying these ready-to-eat little baby meals at Woolies or wherever you buy those things.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that was actually like exactly where I got the idea from for the little pouches, because I became a dad 2 years ago, and I was buying the little pouches, but this was at the time that I was trying to figure out how to do the single Negroni. And at first I wanted to can them, but the smallest can we can get in South Africa, as far as I know, is the 200 ml slim can. But that would be basically almost 3 kind of portions of the Negroni. And it would just put the price point at like 70, 80, 90 kind of rand.
Yeah.
I'm like, no one is going to buy a 200 ml can for $90. That's not going to happen. So I was like, okay, well, let's just do it. And then, yeah, I think that was actually like exactly where I got the idea from for the little pouches, because, I was buying the little pouches, but this was at the time that I was trying to figure out how to do the single Negroni. And at first I wanted to can them, but the smallest can we can get in South Africa, as far as I know, is the 200 ml slim can. But that would be basically almost 3 kind of portions of the Negroni. And it would just put the price point at like 70, 80, 90 kind of rand. I'm like, no one is going to buy a 200 ml can for $90.
And then I came across the pouches. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful! I love that sort of innovation.
Yeah, no, it's fun. It was really nice about having also like the tasting room and the online store. Like before, if you had an idea, you would need to make it kind of retail ready and appropriate, and it had to then, you had to, exactly like saying, like go out, speak to buyers, try and get people to list it. Whereas now I can like just make 50 or 100 units of something.
Yeah.
And it's like whether we do it again or whether it morphs into like a retail brand is one thing. I mean, like last Christmas we released a vodka that we fat washed with Cahaman fat, and we released it as like the perfect Bloody Mary gammon vodka, and it's just a fun thing to do, and I don't have to go and check and make sure all of our warning labels are correct. Like we just sell it here in the store.
Yeah,
it sells out like in a week or two, and it's done, and it's fun. Like not everything has to be this crazy calculated thing.
Yeah. Can you share with us some of the retail outlets that you like working with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know a lot others in the rest of the country, but I mean, here in Cape Town, obviously Roeland Liquors and Woodstock Liquors. There's the Barkeeper, who've always supported us really well. I do know that the Liquor City in Nordia have been buying a lot of our ugly gin over the last year, and we supply them directly. There's that Craft Cartel up in Joburg, and then I would say like Norman Goodfellows is the closest to like a big retail kind of store that actually is kind of easier to work with. They kind of you kind of feel like you're speaking to a person, not a corporation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So they've kind of always supported us quite well. Understandably, they also got so saturated with gin that it was kind of hard to have any discussions with them around any new gin products. At the moment now, we released the whiskey. They've been really cool. Yeah. I think kind of a lot of these guys are also doing a lot of online stuff.
Yeah.
And it feels like the online world is very much driven by like new things.
Yeah.
So everyone wants to be one of the first to release something new. So it feels like a lot of the relationships have changed so that some of these guys really want to be first on your mind when you're releasing something new, to chat to them, so that they can push it out through their channels quickly.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was working with Hillcrest Tops, it was twofold. Obviously, you wanted the new stuff, but you also wanted to create new content. So if you spoke, if you received a new gin, you could talk about it on social media, and I guess that was exciting. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Sure. No, it's...
And your online sales, is that working for you? Is it and is it local or is it across the country?
So yeah, it's kind of across the country. A lot of the stock goes to Gauteng, but actually like all over the show nowadays. And yeah, it works. I think we definitely have to now become that vehicle of like, what is the new fun thing we're doing in the next month? And then we need to create content for it to be able to
tell the story and to sell it, basically. But yeah, I think we're slowly starting to figure it out, like in terms of, and it's actually like a perfect marriage, because I've realized if I'm not doing new, fun, creative stuff, then I think I actually get very stagnant and like everything starts to feel like work. So it's almost good because it forces me to be innovative and creative, and I kind of enjoy it. It's the same as kind of forcing yourself to leave the door and go for a run, and then halfway through the run you're like, oh, this is actually quite nice.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those that we do a lot of the online stuff now, and when we get it right, like when the product is good and the content is good and we manage to get it kind of in people's faces in the right way, like it does really well. We did that limited edition burnt orange and sage version of our ugly gin last year.
Okay.
And we sold about 1,000 bottles in like a week and a half, which for us is like a lot of bottles.
Yeah, for anybody.
Yeah, and I mean, like, of course, there's Facebook ad kind of costs and all that, but we're still making like the full retail sale.
Yeah.
So when you compare the kind of cost of the ads to the costs that you would have to have paid for distribution and rebates and trading terms, and then you get paid now, not 60 days after statement.
Yeah.
So it really like helps with cash flow as well. And then all of that wholesale stuff is not going away. So that kind of churns in the background as well.
Yeah. Okay. And are there any suppliers that you recommend that you work with? We have spoken about Logichem.
Yeah. So basically, all of our equipment is been designed by my dad and built locally for us to specifications. So we haven't brought in anything from overseas or bought anything spec. It's all kind of actually made by hand here in the Western Cape. Mm-hmm. And I work with Bruni or Urban. They do all of our glass. I think we're lucky enough that our numbers are small enough that we haven't gotten completely screwed by all of these, like shipping shortages and delays. But they've treated us well.
I have done an interview with Andre Barnard from Berlin Packaging, so if listeners want to find out more about him.
I work with a bunch of other people down here for different stuff. It's just I've like figured out who's good at what. So when we need something like fast, I'll call these people. Okay. When we need something cheap, I'll go to these people. When we need something of like beautiful quality, I'll go to those people. Fitch and Leeds is kind of our like official mixer here at Tasting Room. They've been like really supportive and really great, helping us out, kind of launching the Tasting Room and kind of providing support where we need it.
And the best place for people to find you is on your website, I guess?
Yeah, so it's a single Son, so it's pienaarson.co.za. Everything's on there. And then, I kind of always encourage people to sign up to the mailing list. Like, I promise we are not going to mail you once a week with some boring, like, hey, happy gin day. It's basically there just to actually, like, let you know about, like, cool new stuff that's coming out. So it's like, if you like what we do and you want early access, like, there's some things, like, say, that we'll only do 200 bottles of, and those sell out in, like, 3 or 4 days. So the mailing list always gets kind of 24-hour preferential access to any new releases and stuff like that. So I kind of always just tell people, join the mailing list and follow us on Instagram, and you should know about everything.
Yeah, that's very clever. Well done. Yeah, Andre, that was a really good conversation. I think you crystallized a lot of things that are in my head about retailers and brands working together. And yeah, it was a very, very nice conversation. Nice catching up with you again. And all the best in the new location and in the post-COVID world. Hopefully that's where we find ourselves at the moment.
No, for sure, man. Thanks so much. I really appreciate chatting to you. You're also one of the very early supporters of us back in the day, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to our stories here online. In the show notes, you will also find a link where you can subscribe to become part of our community and be notified when we upload our latest content.